Hello, my name is Professor Johnny O from Southern Utah University. I'm really excited to be here with you and share with you some of my thoughts about what is diversity culture and why is it important. All right, let's get to it. First, I would like to show you a video. In this video, I want you to be looking around and see and notice any changes happening while you're watching this video. Okay, sounds cool? Okay, let's get to it.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
But how did you know?
Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away. It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you? Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
I know, right? Has anyone noticed like all 21 changes in this video? Maybe you've noticed one or two. I remember when I first saw this video. No, I didn't notice anything. I realized there were 21 changes in this video. Isn't that crazy? The point is, we only observe, we notice what we know, what we have experienced. We have developed this perspective, our point of view, and how we see the world, how we see others and ourselves. Next video. Oh. Oh, this picture, you might have seen an iceberg. Has anybody seen an iceberg? You might have seen it in person, mostly in a movie or in a documentary. So what you see above the surface. So when you if you're looking at an iceberg, what's floating above the water, ocean water, is the only thing you see. But what you don't see underneath the water, it's massive. As you can see in this picture, a culture is like that. We only see like the clothes people wear, the music that people listen to, or the food they eat, or the language they speak. But that's only a tip of the iceberg. Only just small amount of what you don't see underneath the surface, like cultural values, what people believe in that certain culture, what's normal, what's the expectations, what are some rules, cultural rules or taboos. Isn't that interesting? So I'm going to address a few of those, perhaps what we don't see, perhaps what we don't observe when interacting with people from another culture other than our own. All right. So what is intercultural competence? Right? What is intercultural competence and why is it important? So I would like to define what is it. Intercultural competence is your ability to function effectively and also think and do it appropriately. So when you trying to communicate across cultures with people from different backgrounds, from a different culture other than your own, you can work with them effectively and also appropriately. And that could be in your classroom setting or workplaces or the community you're a member of, wherever. So let's look at cultural competency in different settings. So these are the two questions if you want to be culturally competent, if you want to upgrade and you want to increase your ability to be able to communicate, to become a better communicator across the cultures, and that means you're working effectively and appropriately, I would like you to ask these two questions. The first one is, are you willing to entertain or consider an idea of other cultures' way of going about doing the daily activities? Could be as good as your own culture's way of doing things, or even better than your culture's way of doing things? That's the first question. The second question is, are you willing to change for the better? Right? Don't we all want to grow and upgrade the way of our perspective, how we think and feel about others, and learn about them, and we want to be successful, whether in the classroom interacting or at workplaces working with someone from a different background than us, right? So this is a picture, this caterpillar talking to a butterfly. You've changed. And butterfly goes, you're supposed to. And this is the video I took myself. If you look at this you can see this caterpillars and working hard to become a butterfly, constantly growing to come out of this as a sulky cocoon and to become a butterfly. We're destined to change for the better. Now, if you know Charles Darwin, he says it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. Isn't that interesting? You don't have to be the smartest, or more, or you don't have to be. You don't have to be the strongest, but you're willing to change and adapt, and that will help you survive and thrive and successful. So I love smartphone like iPhone. And about a few months ago, I gave my old iPad, smart, this tablet, to my son, and he said, "Papa, can you help me upgrade the software on this tablet?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And we're trying to upgrade the software, the program, but it wouldn't let it. It wouldn't let us do it. You know why? Because the device was outdated. It would not actually work on this old tablet. Same thing. If I get new software, if I don't upgrade to a new software, guess what happens? I get all the bugs, the glitches, and it doesn't function as it should. So it is important to continue to work on ourselves, our ability to be culturally competent, to become a better communicator in whatever setting we're in. So this picture, remember back in 1960, you might have seen a movie or documentary about, United States efforts to put a man on the moon. And the computer they've used to make that happen for that mission, and that cost them billions of dollars. And I have this iPhone, it's about $1,000 US dollars. And this phone, guess what? This phone is smarter than the computer they used to put the man on the moon. Can you believe that? Wow. In this kind of tool give us the ability to communicate across culture effectively and appropriately. And let's look at that a little bit more. This video this video, it shows 100 years of U.S. immigration trends starting 1919 to 2019. And notice how U.S. is changing in terms of immigration. I'm just going to play a few, maybe a minute of this video so you don't have to watch the whole thing, but it is really interesting. I'm gonna fast forward it till 1979. Fast forward it to 2019. Okay, I fast forwarded too much. All right, I think you get the gist of it. The point is, if you want me to describe the United States, it's a country of immigrants. And as you can see, South Korea, I think you'll be interested because you're a South Korean citizen. And here you can see 1973, that's when you see South Korean immigrants noticeably in numbers and continue to rise. In 2019, there are over millions of South Korean immigrants immigrated to the United States. And as you've noticed, when it started in 1919, there are a lot of immigrants came from the European countries. But now they're from everywhere, right? They're from everywhere. And I want to give you this statistics presented by Korean Ministry of Education. And if you look at this, in Korea, foreign students, so international students coming to South Korea to study in universities. In 2003, there are a little over 12,000 students. Now, in 2019, there are over 160,000 students that came from everywhere, just like all the immigrants came to United States to study and to live. And if you look at this, these students came from North America, South America, other Asian countries, Africa, Polynesian countries, and Europe. They're from everywhere. You might have classmates, or you might work with somebody. They came to Korea to study in universities or to work, right? The world is becoming more diverse, and I think you can sense that around you. And next, so what I would like to show you is a few intercultural competency theories. So the first one is social relations. You know how there's a hierarchy in our personal relationships. And the first one is, as you see, this picture, this is President Wyatt and myself. We're hiking and we're trekking in the Wind River Range mountains in Wyoming, in different state. And this is President Wyatt and I were doing this endurance race in southern Utah. But think about this. Can you imagine yourself hanging out or doing this trekking, hiking, or running with the university president in your own country, in South Korea? Right? That's like, wait a minute. No. As a professor, there is social hierarchy, right? You can't just, it's hard to socialize with somebody who's placed in higher social status. It's not very common. But in the U.S., it's a little bit different, right? So we call that power distance. And I want to look at it. What is power distance like in classroom setting? So for instance, the relationships the teachers have with their students. In Korea, in South Korea, or other countries like South Korea, where power distance is large, that, in particular in South Korea, there is Confucius influence, the religion Confucian in South Korea. So what that means is the power distance is large, where the teachers and the students, it's hard for them to interact and socialize. And of course, this is where the students want to show respect for authority. So it's hard to ask questions and socialize in classroom settings. On the other hand, United States and other countries like US, where power distance is small. So with that perspectives, the teachers see their students as like, okay, they are fellow scholars in training, and I would like to mentor them. So that the relationship and the opportunity to develop that kind of relationship with their teachers as students, it's very commonplace, and it's commonly practiced. I want to show you other cultural perspective, that is collectivism and individualism. What is collectivism? Is that something you see often in commonly practiced in South Korea, where you support your group. Your group's interest is higher, greater than your own. So you can sacrifice for the greater good, right? And individualism is your uniqueness. It's okay to promote what is unique about you, your individual, what your talents, your gifts that you have. You're free to express it, and you don't have to worry about the group that you're a part of. And let me give you an example. I think this will help you make more sense here. In this video, you might have let's look at an example in sporting events. This may be a little extreme examples, but I think this will help you understand the difference between collectivism and individualism. And the first video is, I grew up in Jeju Island when I was a kid in South Korea. And when we were in high school, we had a soccer team, and we would practice with our classmates for 2 months, almost 2 months, how to cheer for our team and to show the school spirit. Let's watch this for a sec. Can you believe that? Has anybody done this when you're in high school, cheering for your team or something similar, right? We had to work really hard, and to make sure we're in sync and we're doing the right thing and timing is right. We had a really good time, but this is commonplace. This is very common. You do that for your school, right? Hopefully that will cheer and your soccer players, and they feel the support and the cheers, and they will perform at the highest. It was really fun. But let me also give you an example of what's like what's like in the United States, where individualism is a commonplace.
And while there, maybe they'll tweet us their fan photo, BB. Now's the time, fans. Get on the Twitter with a hashtag of the whole thing, AZ-Strong-Fan, and you might see your fan photo at a Diamondback TV broadcast brought to you by T-Mobile. I mean, look at the one on the right.
Do you have to make faces when you take selfies?
Wait, one more now.
Oh, there you go.
Better angle. Oh, check it. Did that come out okay?
That's the best one of the 300 pictures I've taken of myself today.
Every girl in the picture is locked into her phone.
Oh, Lord.
Every single one is dialed in. Welcome to parenting in 2015. They're all just completely transfixed by the technology. David Peralta. Oh, hold on. I'd take a selfie with the hot dog. Selfie with the churro. Selfie just of a selfie.
I can't even get my phone to take pictures.
Took a picture of your thumb last week. That was good.
Here's my first bite of the churro. Here's my second bite of the churro.
The beauty of baseball is you can sit next to your neighbor and have a conversation, or you can just completely ignore them.
All right. I think you get the point. You get the gist of it. Where it's nothing wrong with this, you're wanting to promote yourself, maybe take a picture and to show your friends and families or whoever, like, I'm having a good time at a baseball game, and promote your brand and your image on social media. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But can you see the difference between the collectivism and individualism here in this? All right, the next one I want to show you, want to talk about, is the difference between low context culture versus high context culture. What is low context culture and what is high context culture? Low context culture is it is very generally practiced in the U.S. or European countries, and high context cultures is something regularly practiced as a norm in Korea, Japan, and other Asian countries. And just to give you an example, before I get to that, so low context culture is all about explanation, clarification, description. The communication is heavily rely on words, the words you say. So what is said is more important than what is not said. And high context culture is that what is not being said can carry more meanings than what is said. Like you don't have to say everything, but people understand what you're saying. Let me give you an example. Here's high context culture example in South Korea. 눈치, right? Just looking around the eyes, you can measure how the people around you might be feeling and thinking, and you adjust in your behavior or what you want to say and what you want to say based on your evaluation done by your what you see, right? And you don't have to say much, and people around you, they don't have to say much. You just get it, right? You get what they might be thinking and doing. Nunchi is a good example of that. Next video I would like to show you is somebody came from high context culture, somebody who's so used to their preference in communication is doing it more, that kind of style come from high context culture. If they were to come into low context culture setting, their communication style can fail. All right, so who got the cigarette? Second person that came in and got the cigarette, no problem. But what happened? The first person who I think he thought like, I asked the same thing. He hinted it and he communicated to her that like, I want a cigarette. But what happened? That person, that woman, is come from low context culture. You need to be asked. You need to ask what you want. And she didn't get it. She didn't get the first person's body language, or the tone, the gesture, right? The hint. The second person just came in because he also come from a low context culture where like, you know what? I want a cigarette, and he got it no problem, right? So this is what happens. When you come from a high context culture, like coming from South Korea to United States, and then the adjustment you need to make is like, you need to say what you want, right? What you're suggesting, what you need. People don't understand the nunchi very well. So they don't know what you might be thinking because they are used to low context culture communication style. Does this make sense? All right. Here's a little quiz. If you're looking at these cartoons, can you guess which cartoon is from high context culture and low context culture? Yeah, you guessed it. The first one is come from low context culture because communication is heavily relied on words. And the second one, you can see facial expression and the gesture, right? You don't need a lot of words to understand this cartoon. So definitely come from high context culture. Another one, here's the quiz. This is beer advertisement. Which beer advertisement is from high context culture? Yeah, you guessed it. The first one, right? The Budweiser, it talks about micro beer. It talks about, a lot of like pumpkins peach, different flavors, and there are a lot of explanation, description about the beer, right? On the other hand, this other commercials, this looks like a couple sitting on a beach and drinking a beer. You don't need to say much. This different Corona beer, and in that culture, and that this would be very effective and appropriate in high context culture. And also, the first beer commercials would be very effective and appropriate advertisement in low context culture. Am I making sense? All right. The next one perspective I would like to share is teacher responsible versus student responsible culture. So let me tell you something. My experience. So I remember this is a long time ago when I was in college, where I took this college calculus class during summer semester. So, that means that we had to work extra to keep up with what is being taught each day, because it's a condensed. We're trying to get cover the whole learning material in 1 month, instead of covering it in 4 months. So we had to work extra, and so I was committed, and I'm studying this college calculus every day for many hours. And I thought I was very smart in mathematics, and I had no problem studying it, and that reflected that on my exams. I did really well, chapter tests and midterm, and I'm top student in the class in that class. And I remember the final exam. I studied as usual. I studied really hard, and when I took the exam, I remember there are 2 questions that wasn't covered in that classroom. That 2 questions was never mentioned in the classroom when the professor taught the learning materials in that classroom. And I was really mad because I wanted to get it 100%. I studied really hard and long, right? And so I wanted to get a 100% on that exam. But I couldn't answer those 2 questions. I was so upset. After the exam, I went straight to the professor's office, and I said, "How could you do this? Professor, this is not what you covered in classroom." And I remember what he said that day. "Well, just because it wasn't covered, it's not in the book. You're responsible for your education, learning this, not me." Wow. I was like, are you serious? I got really good score and I got an A in that class, but that's not the point. The point is that, what? It's my responsibility to learn all this? Because I was so used to the culture where, when I was living in Korea and studying in South Korea, the teacher will tell you what you need to study, right? The teacher will tell you what chapter, what to study. And we trust that. We trust that authority. But in the US, no, that's not necessarily the case. You need to know. That's why students raise their hands, ask questions. "Teacher, professor, I don't understand this. Can you help me understand this?" Right? It's totally different perspective here. So that's something I had to make that adjustment to become a better student. And that was really good lesson for me. And I'm grateful for that experience. So teacher responsible culture versus learner responsible cultures. And here's another thing. One more cultural perspective I would like to share is this. silence is regarding silence, how a culture feels about silence, right? The first video, this is when I was in South Korea many years ago. I took this video myself with my smartphone. And let's look at this. What do you hear? You only hear the wheels turning, right, on the track. Nobody's speaking. You can hear a pin drop. It's silent. Everybody's on their phone, or they're taking a little quick nap, or meditating, or reading a book, or whatever, right? The silent is golden. They want to show and respect for personal bubbles and around you, other passengers, right? But is this the same? Is this universal? Is this common? Is this commonly practiced in other cultures? No, not necessarily. This is a quick video. This this happens a lot in living in the United States. It's a comedy, but it demonstrates the point that silence is awkward. Let's watch this.
No need to panic, though. No need to panic at all. You and your little baby, you just remain calm.
I'm not pregnant.
Oh. What a pretty sleeve.
All right. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but I think you get the gist of it, where silence is awkward. You know, a lot of people feel in that kind of culture where silence is awkward, where they feel uncomfortable because it's silent. So it's a void they want to fill in with something, like with a small talk, like, oh, you look good. How's it going? How's the weather? Whatever. And so that they can avoid the awkwardness, right? Being silent. Does that make sense? So the point of all this is, I think next video kind of will demonstrate that. Let's watch it.
Hey, kid. You got to get down. Come on.
AmeriQuest Mortgage.
Right? When you see people that come from different backgrounds and different cultures, like, makes you wonder, like, I don't understand them, right? Maybe you're like, you want to judge them based on your cultural experience, the culture you brought up in, right? But if you understand different cultural perspective, guess what? You will, okay, that makes sense. Okay, you're become more aware of other cultures' way of doing things, right? and other cultures' way of doing things can be as good as like how your own culture's way of doing things, or it can be even better than your own culture's way of doing things. Therefore, you're open-minded, open to suggestions, open to different ways of doing things, accomplishing the same goal, or perhaps you can be more effective or appropriate working with people come from different cultures. Does that make sense? All right. So I want to look at this so why is diversity and cultural awareness in classroom important? Okay, I think we covered that a little bit, but as you've seen this experience, cultural diversity in the classroom is on the rise. You may have international students sitting in your classroom studying together or in workplaces. And so this trend will continue. And our society is becoming more diverse and multicultural, right? And so it's more important than ever for teachers to incorporate cultural responsive instruction in the classroom, so we can learn about different cultures in classrooms. And also, diversity does not just only relate to race or different ethnicity, but also it's students' different religion, their economic status, gender identity, or language background, and other things like that. And why is it important to encourage diversity in school? Yeah, why is it important to encourage diversity in school? As you experience, as you know, our society is becoming more diverse and multicultural. I think it's essential to we prepare our students to be more adaptive, to adapt to evolving world. Remember the caterpillar becoming a butterfly, and also embrace those differences different from their own, other than their own culture, and be successful in that diverse world. We can't, if we don't know, right? We can do better, right? You learn and you know and you can do better, and you can upgrade and adapt to this evolving and very diverse world. Next question is, why is it important to teach culture in the classroom? So the students become more empathetic, more understanding. Oh yeah, not quick to judge, but reserve judgment and become more empathetic. You can relate to that people that you work with. People gain better understanding of lessons and people. You understand them better, where they come from, right? You understand not only what you see above the surface. Do you remember the iceberg, above the ocean, what you see, but what you don't see underneath the surface, how they think, their expectations, what they believe in. When this culture is taught in classrooms, you can understand and you can gain a better understanding of people and culture. And students become more open-minded, right? What happens if somebody is more open-minded? They're more flexible, they're more creative, right? That's so fun when you become more creative in whatever you're doing, and it's more fun. and they're more open-minded and open to suggestions and other cultures' way of doing things, and like, oh, you know what? I really like that. I like how you do it. I want to learn more, and I want to try it out myself, right? Students become more open-minded. And students feel more confident and safe, right? Because they are learning about different cultures in the classroom. And also in how they do things, like, okay, there's no surprises. And you get to practice that in the classroom. Perhaps students from a different region, different culture, like, I'm confident, I feel safe. This doesn't stress me out. This is exciting, this is fun. And students feel more confident. And students are better prepared for a diverse workplace. Oh, this is a big one, right? So you want to, after you get an education, you will likely get a job, and you're hoping you have your dream jobs, right? And you'll be surprised, or in that case, if the culture is taught in classroom, you won't be so surprised to learn that, wow, this workplace that you work in, your job, your work organizations or schools, wherever you work, wow, this is so diverse. This is amazing. So you will feel more prepared, like, I've got this. Like, I know a little bit about this culture, a little bit about that culture. I know how I can be appropriate, how I can be effective working with people from different backgrounds. Right? Does this make sense? Right, great. The next one is, how do you manage diversity in the classroom? So how do you do it? How do you manage diversity in the classroom? Number one is, you get to know your students. Yeah, you get to know their names, where they're from, what they like to do, and how they like to do things, and what they believe in, so on. You get to know your students. And number two, acknowledge and respect every student. You acknowledge, be aware of where they come from, and different perspectives that come from different culture, but respect them. And number three is practice cultural sensitivity. Just because how they think and how they feel and how they see themselves and others, in this case, others in the classroom, including the teacher, you, and other classmates, you practice this cultural sensitivity where, okay, if it's not appropriate for one culture, maybe appropriate for your own culture, but may not be appropriate for other culture that the student come from, then you need to be sensitive to that, to show respect, right? So students feel safe, and they can learn. You give them a permission to learn other cultures and their perspectives, and incorporate diversity in the lesson plan. So in order to teach your students about different cultural perspectives, what you need to do is, okay, let's learn about them. Intentional about what you're teaching, so that they can learn and they can grow. They can have, through discussions, interactions among the students and with you as a teacher. And next one is a video about there's a cultural issue in Japan that kind of taboo in Japan. And this is very creative and very effective and appropriate to address this taboo or this issue, cultural issue in Japan, and be successful in that setting. And I'd like to show you that.
Freshness Burger, a national hamburger chain in Japan, faced a challenge. Classic Burger, their largest offering, was the one list chosen by female customers. Why? For Japanese women, having an ochobo, small and modest mouth, is regarded as attractive. In public, a large open mouth is regarded as ugly and rude. It is therefore considered good manners to cover the mouth when opening it. This means they are denied the wild pleasure of taking mouth-sized bites of this big tasty burger freely in public. Freshness Burger decided to challenge this convention, freeing women from the spell of the ochobo mouth. We introduced the Liberation Wrapper, a large wrapper that lets women fulfill their desire for a big, juicy, mouth-sized bite of a classic burger. And that is for everyone. Result. The campaign was a big and instant success. Sales of classic burger to female customer was up to 213% compared to the previous month. The campaign was featured on national network TV and welcomed by happy voices across social network media. Free women from the spell of ochobo.
Isn't that fun? Oh, that the cultural taboo, having small mouth, ochobo, but they were able to, that liberation rapper is not so creative to address that appropriately, but very effective. 213% sale increase, right? It's very effective in that business and very appropriate solution to address that. So I want to ask you, think about, what are some of the effective and appropriate solutions and you practice in your country, in your setting, like classroom setting, your workplace, in school, whatever, wherever, and practice that solution and try it out in your in that setting. Think about that, and you tried it out, like, oh, what would be very effective in my culture and appropriate in this setting when I'm interacting with somebody from different culture, and there's an issue, and do I think the same way they do, or just be curious about it and be open-minded to suggestions you might get from them, and find the best solutions that will work for everybody involved, and that is effective and appropriate. And I think if you could do that and you can practice that and be intentional about that, I think you will increase your ability to communicate across the cultures and be more in a culturally competent individual and teacher and student and learner. It was so good to be with you today. Thank you so much for being here. And hopefully we'll see you next time in another lecture. Thank you so much. Have a good day.